Hello everyone, Mr. Minnick's my name. Math is my game. I'm really excited about the weather. I don't know when you're watching this back, but I love the weather. I love the weather when it's nice and cool. So anyway, today what we're looking at is using the TI-NSpire. Um, I think that hey, it actually recognized that as Inspire, not Inspile. It looked like I wrote TI-NSpile. Um, the TI-NSpile, if you've never seen it, it's a graphing calculator. I've got just the keyboard showing up on mine. I could change the view if you want to see what just the handheld looks like. There it is. Yours might look a little bit different than that, but that's what the TI-NSpire, I should be saying. That's what it looks like, and we're going to be using it today. So we're going to be using it to try to get through this worksheet. The worksheet that I've got that accompanies this particular assignment in my classes is called Worksheet TI Quad. And one of the things we're going to be doing is graphing. So that's probably a really good place to start. So if you have your calculators, I'd like you to press the home button. The home button, it's the one that looks like a house. It's at the top right of the calculator. And you'll notice all kind of stuff. You'll see the little icon up at the top that looks like a house. You'll see the thing that says scratch pad. You'll see the thing that says calculate and graph. And a lot of people want to use the scratch pad just because it's fast, just because it's easy. Well, don't. The scratch pad's limited in what it can do. It can't do everything. So I always like to start off with a brand new document. So you can either arrow over, you could press the number 1, you can use the D-pad, however you want to do it, but I want to start a new document, and every time you do that, if there's something to open, it'll say, do you want to save what you've got going on? Don't save what you've got going on. And we're going to go to option number 2, graph. Again, to get into this, you can either use the D-pad and click, or you could just press number 2, however you want to get there, but let's press, I'm pressing number 2, and it's going to go to my graph page. Everybody with me so far? Good. So one thing I noticed right off the bat is on this worksheet that's going to accompany this that I'll give you in a few minutes, there's a grid. Do you see how there's a grid on this worksheet on the graph? I don't know if you can see that. Let me blow it up and make it bigger. Notice how there's those little dots there in the grid. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get those dots to show up in our graph? So on your calculator, there's 6 buttons at the top. I want you to pay attention to these 6 buttons. Escape. Escape lets us get out of something we don't want to be in. Scratch pad, I said don't use scratch pad, so we're not even going to touch that one. Tab is really good, but not now. Home is really good. Dock is really good, but menu is the one we want. We're going to press menu. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to view, and that's going to let us add that grid if we'd like. Okay. So in case you missed that, I went menu and then view. And once I'm at menu and then view, notice option 6. It's going to let me view a grid. Okay, option 6 is going to let me view a grid. And I can make it either dotted or lined. I'm going to go ahead and make it dotted. Okay, everybody able to do that so far, I hope? Good. All right, so the first function I'd like to graph as we explore this with the TI-NSpire is y equals x. Now that's a parent linear function. It should be easy enough to graph. Y equals x. So you'll notice we see an f of x or f1 of x equals, and we got to type in x. So I'm going to type in x, and I'm just going to press enter, and there it is. A nice line shows up. Okay. Big deal. What's the point? Well, there's a lot of stuff we can find that accompanies a function. Okay, so some things that we're going to talk about today are going to be x-intercepts, y-intercepts, actually just a y-intercept, because if something had y-intercepts, it wouldn't be a function and we wouldn't be able to graph it. But some functions are going to have x-intercepts and some are going to have y-intercepts. Or a y-intercept, I should say. Okay, so x-intercepts, y-intercept, and there's something else as it relates to a quadratic that we're going to be talking about. What's a critical part of a quadratic that we want to find out? A key component of a quadratic function that we might want to see. The highest or lowest point. The minimum or the maximum, otherwise known as the vertex. Good. Okay, so sometimes we're going to be after a vertex or a min, or a maximum. Okay. So those are the things we're going to be looking at when we get to quadratics. Now, we're just looking at this linear function for now, and that's okay. With this linear function, we'll be able to find our x-intercept, and we'll be able to find our y-intercept. And there's more than one way to do this, and I'd like to go ahead and get right into it. So if we're trying to find our x-intercept, maybe this is a bad example, but that's okay. An x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis, and you might be able to tell what it is, huh? What is it? It's 0. That's pretty easy to tell. Now, if we want to actually calculate it, what you need to know about an x-intercept is that it's got another name. I have another name. My name's Mr. Minnick. My name's also Matthew. My name's also Dude. My name's also Home Slice. Okay? I go by all those different names. Not so much Home Slice anymore. Okay? But the point is, an x-intercept is often called a 0. An x-intercept is also called a 0. Similarly, it's also called a root. Okay? So keep in mind that when we talk about an x-intercept, we really could be saying a 0. So on our calculator, if we wanted to find the x-intercept, we'd be trying to find this point right here where my little arrow is. So I'm going to need to use some special eyes. Anybody remember how I get my special eyes? I'm going to want to press one of those 6 buttons at the top. Seems like menu is pretty effective, so I'm going to go ahead and press menu. And which special eyes am I going to use? I'm going to use my anal eyes. And I'm going to analyze the graph. Now, if you're having a hard time going through these screens, remember we pressed menu. You could press numbers or you can use the D-pad and click. I like pressing the numbers because sometimes the D-padding and the clicking, it gets a little crazy. So if you press 6, and we want to find a 0, so I'm going to go ahead and press 1. And here's where this is a very critical skill that you develop early on. Once you get this skill, it's a piece of cake. But if you don't have this skill, you're really going to struggle with everything else we're going to do today. Anything you're going to do as far as analyzing one of these graphs, for that matter. So what we've got going on is a graph that looks like that, and we're trying to find that point right there, and the calculator's awful at doing this without you telling it something. So the calculator's asking you for a lower bound. Okay? And what the calculator does when it's asking you for that lower bound is it's got this vertical line that shows up. I don't know if anybody's noticed that yet. But the calculator, it's asking you a question. It's got this vertical line, and it's asking you lower bound. And you could use the D-pad and move back and forth. But here's what has to happen. You have to pick a lower bound anywhere to the left. Let me undo that. The lower bound has to be to the left of this point that you're trying to approximate. Okay? It has to be to the left. And here's what I don't like about the Inspire. It's so user-friendly. If you pick a lower bound above it and an upper bound below it, it actually works, okay, which is kind of weird. But anyway, for the sake of being consistent, the lower bound, what has to happen is this vertical line has got to be to the left of the point we're trying to find. So to be clear, right here where the star is, that's the point we're trying to find, and the lower bound has to be to the left of that. So on my graph with my D-pad, I can D-pad to the left of it. Or if I want, I could type in an x value. What's an x value that's to the left of my x-intercept here? -2. And we could just type that in. -2. And then enter. Now the calculator asks me for a right bound, or an upper bound, I'm sorry. Now it's asking me for an upper bound. Okay? So for an upper bound, it has to be to the right of the point we're trying to find. It has to be to the right of that point. Okay? So what's got to happen here then is when there it is. Let me go ahead and make this one blue. So this vertical line now here, this has got to be to the right of that point. And if it's not, then the calculator's not going to do anything. I'm just going to go ahead and leave my upper bound in the wrong place. And it says no 0 found because I didn't do this right. So I got to start all over. Menu. Analyze. 0. Lower bound, -2. Upper bound. I could type something in. I could D-pad over. However I do it, I got to go past the point I'm trying to find. And there it is. Okay. Now I can see what my 0 is. How's everybody feel about that? Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, short debates, long debates. Now, I said there's more than one way to the Eastwood Mall. In an x-intercept, if you've forgotten this, an x-intercept or a 0 is the value of x when y equals 0. It's the value of x when y equals 0. Because of that, and because of the fact that this calculator can solve equations, yes, I said it, it can solve equations, and our function is function f1 of x, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if this will find the 0 of the function at a calculator page. And we'll get to something more exciting here in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the doc button. Doc. And I want to insert into this document. So if you missed that, it's doc, insert, and I want to insert a calculator page, but I want it to be on the same problem. So I got calculator page going. If you notice at the top, the tabs, I have tab 1.1 and tab 1.2. There's a couple ways to cycle between them. You can press control. You don't ever have to hold control on the calculator. Control left, control right. If you press control up, you can actually go to a slide sorter view. From a slide sorter view, I said from a slide sorter view. You could press enter on whatever slide you want. You could shuffle the slides. But anyway, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say nsolve parentheses F1. Now, to get all this, I'm just typing it, okay? I'm typing it. So I'm typing nsolve, left parenthesis, F1 of x, I said of x, equals 0, and I want to nsolve that for x. I know that's a lot to type, but I do have to type all that. And whatever the solution I get here is, that's going to be my x-intercept. And we said it was 0, and it's 0. Okay, surprise, surprise. Now, I think I've got my settings set up to round to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to go ahead and change that right now. My document settings are set to be fixed at a certain number of decimal places. So I'm going to go ahead and change that now. So I'm back in this document, and there it is. Numerically solve, and that's another way I could find an x-intercept. There's a problem with that, though. If there's more than one x-intercept, that's only going to find one of them. It's only going to find one of them. How are we feeling so far? Good? Now, I said this function's not very exciting because the x-intercept and the y-intercept are both the same, but I want to go back to the graph. So if you're on this calculator page, let's go back to the graph page. Control left will get us back to the graph page. And it's not a very exciting function. We already knew all these points, but what I want to do now is think about a y-intercept. Remember a y-intercept, if you forgot that, a y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0. So the point I want to make here is if we just look at a table of the graph, a table of values, we can probably quickly find the y-intercept. So I'm just going to insert a table. Now, I don't know if I've told this group this or not, but the calculator is like a computer. On my computer, on my keyboard, if I wanted to open up a file, I could press Alt-F. If I wanted to print something, I would press Control-P. Now keep in mind when you're using the calculator, you don't need to hold Control. So if I want to insert some kind of table into this, what do you reckon I would press? Control-T. Check it out. Control-T, and there you go. There's your table of values. Okay, if you scroll up, you'll notice when x is 0, y is 0, and so our y-intercept on this particular graph is 0. Okay. Are there any questions about anything we've seen so far? Comments? That's it. All we got to do now is just look at some more exciting examples. We ready? Okay. Up next, the next item up for bids is a 2016 Ford Mustang. Anybody like Mustangs? I love their tail lights when you hit the brakes or the turn signals. So the next function we're going to look at, we're going to go and we're going to insert a new graph here. Actually, we're going to insert a new problem. So I'm going to go doc. I'm going to go doc. I'm going to insert, and I want to insert a new problem. You'll probably notice something weird happens with the tabs. And it's a good idea to do this because on the worksheet, we're going to be going back to earlier problems and back to earlier problems and back to earlier problems. I'll just bring it up for a second. On the worksheet, you're going to be going back and you're going to be asking or answering questions from previous problems. So don't delete something once you started it, okay? We're just going to insert a new problem, though. And on this new problem, we want another graph, okay? We want another graph. Now, you'll notice that our grid is gone. Should we turn the grid back on, or are we okay with it off? It's a preference thing, okay? It's a preference thing. We'll leave it off for now. But for this particular one, let's go ahead and graph this function. Let's graph 2x squared minus 5x plus 1. 2x squared minus 5x plus 1. Everybody got that so far, I hope. If you didn't get that, what I had done from the previous screen, remember I went doc, I went insert, I inserted this problem, and I've got a graph page. In the function I graph, I'm typing in 2x, what was it, 2x squared, was it minus 5x? Minus 5x plus 1, and I didn't put the minus 5x. Minus, I said minus 5x plus 1, and there we go. Everybody doing all right now? Got them? Okay. Let's see if we can find the vertex. What should we press to find the vertex? One of the 6 buttons at the top are real important. We don't want to go anywhere, so we're not going to press escape. We don't want to use a scratch pad, so we're not going to press that. We don't need to cycle to something else, so we're not going to press tab. We don't want to go back home. We don't need to modify the document, but we do need to use something in the menu. What are we going to use? Our special eyes. And what do we want to find if we want to find the vertex? It doesn't say vertex. Minimum value. How'd you know it's a minimum? Because it's going up and it's at the bottom of the graph. Awesome, good. Minimum value. Here we go. Oh, no. This lower bound stuff again. Do you think my line's okay where it is now? Remember what we said about this bounding. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to do anything else that we're doing the rest of this activity. The lower bound, that line has to be to the left of the point that we're trying to find. If I look at that dotted vertical line, is it to the left of my vertex? Not exactly. So what do I need to do? I need to arrow over. I could type an X value, or I can arrow over. I'm just going to arrow over. Is that far enough? Yeah, so now what? Click enter. And now it asks upper bound, and I press enter, and it says you're an idiot. We didn't find anything because you didn't do it right. Now you got to start all over. Good job. Way to go. Analyze graph. Find a minimum. Lower bound over here. Enter. Now upper bound. I got to make sure I go to the other side of it. And I do, and there's that. So, and here's one of those reasons why I wanted you to know fractions and decimal equivalents, because fractions come up in life. Fractions come up in varsity math. Fractions came up on this problem. What if you had to write that as fractions because your math teacher is a jerk and hates decimals? 1.25, what is that as an improper fraction? 1.25 is 1 1/4, so that's how many fourths? 5/4, nice, good, awesome. And then negative 2 and a negative 2.125 is negative 2 and how much? We should know 0.125. That's half of 0.25. So it's half of a fourth. Half of a fourth. So it's an eighth, right? So negative 2 and an eighth is how many eighths? Negative 17 eighths, right? Negative 17 eighths. Doing all right? So the next time you have to take a quiz or a test where you're asked to find the vertex, and you have something like 2x squared minus 5x, well, was it plus 1? And you do this, h is minus 5 over 2 times 2. Maybe you could use a calculator to find the vertex next time around, and you'll be able to switch from decimals to fractions, huh? Just so you know, your math teacher hates decimals. Decimals don't exist until chapter 7. Just a FYI. Okay, so let's go back to this graph where we got to find something else. Let's see if we can't find the zeros now, the x-intercepts. Remember, x-intercepts are zeros. So again, we're going to press menu. We're going to analyze the graph, and we're going to find a zero. It depends which zero I want to find. Am I trying to find the zero right there or the zero over here? Which one should I find first, the one on the left or the one on the right? The one on the right first? Okay. Do I have a good lower bound right here? Enter. I need to arrow over to the other side, and there we go. Oh, what happened there? Menu, analyze, find a zero, pick a good lower bound. I said pick a good lower bound. That's probably good. Pick a good upper bound. That's probably good. So that zero is 2.28 something. We're going to be talking about those in the second half of the chapter. How do I find the other zero? Abracadabra, alakazam, oh calculator, be a nice man and find it for me. What do I got to do? Same thing. Menu. Analyze. Zero. Click, click. There it is. Oh, I just did a bunch of stuff I didn't mean to do. Did we get the idea with this? I'm about to turn you loose with this worksheet, but I want to try one more. So let's go doc. I said let's go doc. Doc, insert. Let's go a new problem one more time in another graph. In another graph. And this time, let's go with 6 times the group x minus 1 times the group, I said times the group x plus 9. Whoa! Dude, how am I supposed to find the vertex now? Could zoom out. Let's try that. Menu, window, zoom out. Nothing happened. The calculator's asking me a question. It's saying, center? Isn't that Hayden Nichols? Shout out to Hayden Nichols. Center? Hayden Nichols? What's that mean, center? What do I got to do? It means I got to tell the calculator where exactly I want to zoom out from. So I got to use the D-pad. And I want to zoom out from down here, and then I'll click. And that didn't do it. So where do you want to zoom out from now? Down here again. And it still didn't zoom out far enough. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Maybe zoom out's not going to get it done. Maybe we want to try another zooming option. Which one do you think might make the graph fit in the window? Zoom fit, right? Let's try zoom fit and see what happens. Hey, there's my vertex. Menu, analyze. Is this a minimum or a maximum? It's a minimum, so I'm going to click over here, click over here. So there's my vertex, -4, -150. -4, -150. Could we find the x-intercepts? Remember before I told you how to find the x-intercepts on the calculator page, if I do that, this is where I did that NSolve business. NSolve f1 of x equals 0 for x. But it only gives me one of them. It only gives me one of my x-intercepts. But we know that this thing's got two x-intercepts. It gave me the 1 to 1. What about the other one? How do we find the x-intercepts again? Isn't this where we go menu, analyze, find a 0, and we click and we click. And we go menu, analyze, and find a 0, and we click and we click. All right? So that's about all I've got, I think. Are there any questions about anything that we've seen in this video with finding bounds and x-intercepts and y-intercepts and stuff like that? Oh, speaking of y-intercepts, how do I find my y-intercept again? What's a fast way? Fast way to find the y-intercept? Where do you eat dinner? Where should you eat dinner instead on the couch? Or in your mom and dad's nice car that they just had detailed, and you're going to have McDonald's French fries under the seat that are going to smell like crap, but aren't going to change any for 3 years. Table. Control T. So my y-intercept is the value of y when x is 0, so my y-intercept is 0, negative 54. Got it? Get it? It's been real. It's been fun. I'm going to give a shout out to the future Mr. Minnick. I hope you have a great day. See you. Good.